This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Harvard on the hot seat. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. The Trump administration urging all federal agencies now to sever ties with Harvard University. The White House wants to end all government contracts with the Ivy League school because of its alleged woke ideology. Harvard says it's being punished by the White House for pursuing academic freedom.
Students gathered on Harvard's campus last night, protesting the Trump administration's treatment of the Ivy League school. And rallying in support of international students whose education here is in jeopardy.
Correspondent Nikki Batiste in Cambridge, Massachusetts today. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt says tax dollars that go to Harvard should instead be spent at trade schools.
Electricians, plumbers, we need more of those in our country and less LGBTQ graduate majors from Harvard University.
President Trump's already frozen nearly $3 billion in grants for Harvard. This week is graduation week at the Ivy League school. The Trump White House has temporarily paused student visa applications at America's institutions of higher learning. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce.
It seems to be such a controversial thing that's going on, but it shouldn't be. And every nation should take seriously and does who's coming in. So if you're going to be applying for a visa, follow the normal process, the normal steps, expect to be looked at.
Attorney Leo Terrell is leading a special DOJ task force on anti-Semitism in America.
Coming to school here on a student visa is a privilege. This is not academic freedom. This is anti-Semitism in its purest, most hatred form, and it's being tolerated not only on universities, but throughout the country.
Mr. Trump also promising a robust vetting of the social media posts of foreign students. 27% of Harvard's student body hails from countries outside the U.S. President Trump warning Vladimir Putin he faces sanctions for escalating the war in Ukraine. Mr. Trump adding a lot of bad things would have happened to Russia if not for him, end quote. Fox's Jared Halpern gets reaction from Moscow.
Dmitry Medvedev, a top Putin ally in the Kremlin, responded to President Trump, warning the only really bad thing is World War III. The president has tried to broker a ceasefire, so far unsuccessfully. He's also been critical of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, saying everything out of his mouth causes problems.
President Trump called Putin absolutely crazy for launching more than 900 drones and missiles at 30 Ukrainian cities over the Memorial Day weekend. A test flight of the SpaceX Starship rocket was unsuccessful last night. The mega rocket, the biggest and most powerful ever built.
They've got to get the spacecraft operating successfully.
Space consultant Bill Harwood says a fuel leak caused the Starship to disintegrate over the Indian Ocean.
I have no doubt they'll be back to flying soon. They'll have lots of telemetry from this flight. They'll figure out what went wrong. They'll implement fixes to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then they'll try again. I mean, that's the way they test.
NBC's Tom Costello.
What they're trying to do is something that's never been done before, taking the biggest rocket ever engineered and reusing it multiple times to one day take humans back to the moon and perhaps all the way to Mars.
The Starship rocket is a crucial part of SpaceX's long-term plans for colonizing Mars. NASA's counting on it to land mankind back on the moon in a couple of years. Consider this the final boarding call for free checked bags at Southwest Airlines. The low-cost carrier's popular Bags Fly Free program ends today. Southwest says the move is being made to drive revenue growth. Southwest is also ending open seating sometime next year. Texas has a new law requiring Apple and Google verify the ages of all its users. Parental consent will be necessary for anyone under 18. That law takes effect January 1st.
The implications of this law have extra weighted meaning, as the Supreme Court is set to rule on a different Texas law that requires internet companies and websites to collect age information and verification before giving them access to what is considered adult-only content.
Tech analyst Ian Shure. President Trump says Canada would enjoy enjoy the benefits of a Golden Dome missile defense system if it would only join these United States. The commander-in-chief writes on Truth Social that our neighbor to the north would be shielded for free if they become America's 51st state. Now to Arkansas, where the search continues for a former police chief turned convicted murderer who escaped from prison over the weekend. CBS's Ian Lee.
How would you describe Grant Hardin?
Just an evil person.
Gateway, Arkansas Mayor Cheryl Tillman is reliving a nightmare. Grant Hardin, a former police chief of the very same town, murdered her brother James Appleton in February 2017.
The mayor admits she's scared now that Grant Hardin is on the loose.
He's in prison, and they're not supposed to escape, so somebody wasn't doing their job. I don't like guns, but we have one loaded now.
Hardin was serving an 80-year sentence for rape and murder when he broke free on Sunday after impersonating a prison guard. New study finds children from divorced homes have more challenges later in life. Kids whose parents get divorced before they turn 6 have a greater risk of financial instability, teenage pregnancy, and incarceration. These findings are based on data from a team of economists at the U.S. Census Bureau. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. GM putting its money where its motor is. New York Dems take on the Don, and some lesser-known rules of the road.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. Another round of some cool, sometimes wet conditions ahead. We'll have forecast details in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll look for you then. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. General Motors investing $888 million into its Tonawanda propulsion plant in western New York. This is the largest single investment GM has ever made in an engine plant. That money will be used to help production of GM's V8 engines, which are used in trucks and SUVs. The project will support nearly 900 jobs at that plant in Tonawanda. There's a tech scam making the rounds you ought to know about. Scammers are impersonating the DMV. The message states you owe money for a traffic ticket and threatens to suspend your registration if you don't pay it immediately.
We started receiving the calls on Friday, and it was just one after another. Every call we received was just, hey, I got this text message. Is this from the DMV?
Carrie Smith with the Department of Motor Vehicles in Chautauqua County, New York.
It's quite alarming because these people put their faith in the DMV, and we don't want people getting scammed. DMV will never send a text, anything like that. The only time they will do that is for a renewal reminder.
Smith recommends you never click links on suspicious texts. Also, check for misspelling or suspicious-looking web addresses. It's important not to share any personal information through a text, and you can contact your local DMV if you have any questions. A funeral home director from Corning, New York, facing child sex charges today. Police say 55-year-old Peter Russell solicited sex from an underage child and even planned to meet up with that child on a playground in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Russell was arrested as a result of a sting operation that was organized by a Clearfield County, Pennsylvania group that targets online predators. Russell co-owned Carpenter's Funeral Home in Corning, Phillips Funeral Home in Corning, and the Flint Funeral Home in Addison. New York Democrats want to punish air carriers that cooperate with the Trump administration when it comes to the deportation of illegal immigrants.
He is going too far. We can hit them in the pocketbook.
But Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay says economic warfare, as he is calling this, is a slippery slope.
So a very dangerous circumstance when you're really using government powers to choose winners and losers based on political ideology.
Barclay says President Trump was in large part reelected because of his stance on immigration.
Trump didn't hide this when he was running for office. This is what he campaigned on, is what the people, I think he had a mandate from the public to do it.
Nonetheless, Democrats are sponsoring the New York for All Act, which would prohibit collaboration between the state of New York and federal immigration officials. A Pennsylvania college is launching a new program that encourages more people to pursue careers in criminal justice. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Central Penn College in Enola, Pennsylvania has launched a new program that will give students the opportunity to pursue careers in the criminal justice field, including jobs like law enforcement and correctional officers. The new criminal justice certificate program is part of an agreement with the Pennsylvania State Police that allows enlisted and retired troopers to earn college credit for their academic training. The 6-class 18-credit program also aims to recruit and retain qualified personnel for corrections officers and state troopers. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Violence at school is a growing problem. New CDC figures show 1 in 5 high school students have reported being bullied on school property in the past year. 1 in 5. Nearly 1 in 10 have been in an actual fight and or have been threatened by a weapon while on school grounds. This fall, New York becomes just the 4th state in the country to enact a bell-to-bell cell phone ban at schools statewide. Jennifer Granville is with the Greece Central School District near Rochester.
It's a change for the students, and they don't obviously adapt too well to change, but we're getting into the flow now.
Students at Greece Central must deposit their digital devices into specially designed pouches at the start of each school day. Walk-through body scanners will be able to detect if they do or don't. Casey Volkill is in charge of security at the district.
They have become a major issue in schools, and this is another way for us to try and get them before they come in the door. It's a big problem, not just in schools, but throughout society.
School districts across the state must submit on their websites by the 1st of August how exactly they plan to implement the new bell-to-bell cell phone ban. Again, it takes effect in September. Pennsylvania State Police are reminding motorists of a new cell phone ban that takes effect next Thursday. This law makes it illegal to operate digital devices while operating a motor vehicle. For now, all you'll get is a warning if you get pulled over, but starting next year, police will start issuing fines. Did you know it's illegal in New York to display parking tags, air fresheners, or anything else on your car or truck's rear view mirror? It's true, and a lot of people don't know about it.
People should be aware of it's still obstructed view to have things hanging from your mirror, your rear view mirror. No go.
Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple telling Spectrum News that window tinting, loud exhausts, and license plate covers are also unlawful.
People still tint their cars. No go. Tint is still illegal. License plate covers. You see them everywhere. They're illegal.
Many drivers admit they're not aware of these rules of the road and why they even exist.
I understand if it's something like large or blocking view, but if it's like an air freshener, I don't understand the point behind it.
A lot of the laws nowadays just kind of seem like one big money grab.
New York has been a trend setter of sorts when it comes to motor vehicle laws. Back in 1984, the Empire State became the first state to require seatbelt use. Since then, 49 other states have followed suit. The only one that hasn't, New Hampshire. It's the only state that does not require adults buckle up. Sports is next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Indiana Pacers are on the verge of making the NBA Finals after beating the Knicks 130-121 in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Tyrese Halliburton had an incredible game. 32 points, 15 assists, 12 rebounds, and he did not turn the ball over once. The Pacers are now up 3-1 as this series shifts to Madison Square Garden tomorrow night. To baseball, both Pete Alonso and Jared Young did some yard work to lead the Mets to a 6-4 victory over the White Sox. The Amazons have now won 4 in a row. Ranger Suarez struck out 8 over 6 shutout innings. The Phillies blanked the Braves 2-zip. Philadelphia now winners of 9 of their last 10. Shohei Ohtani keeps on hitting home runs. For the 3rd day in a row, he went deep to help the Dodgers to a 9-5 win over the Guardians. Ohtani now has 20 home runs in just 55 games. And how about a walk-off grand salami? Christian Yelich did it in the bottom of the 10th. The Brewers took down the Red Sox 5-1. The Pirates came back to down the D-backs 9-6. The Bucs scored 7 runs in the 8th inning to surprise Arizona. Brian Reynolds, the big blow, a 3-run shot to help Pittsburgh snap a 2-game skid. Elsewhere in the bigs, Jose Altuve hit 2 home runs and the Astros wallop the A's 11-1. The Twins doubled up Tampa Bay 4-2. Texas shut out Toronto 2-zip. The Padres came back from a 6-0 deficit to beat the Marlins 8-6. The Cubs edged the Rockies 4-3. Seattle, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Detroit also picked up victories. And on the ice, the Edmonton Oilers are just 1 win away from going to the Stanley Cup Finals. They knocked off Dallas 4-1. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. And still to come on the Noon Report for a Wednesday, the epidemic of loneliness, birds on a plane, and the devil in the Ozarks.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This month, 1,700 years ago, was one of the most significant and consequential events in all of church history. Across the Bosporus Strait from Constantinople in Nicaea, a council met to settle a question that was plaguing the church. Who precisely is Jesus Christ? Their work shaped the future of Christian theology. In the first few centuries after Christ's resurrection, Jesus was understood in a variety of ways. The Gnostics doubted his humanity, arguing that Jesus was a purely spiritual being who only seemed human. Others suggested that Jesus was an angel or archangel, specifically the angel of the Lord mentioned in the Old Testament. By the 3rd century, the church had accepted the deity of Christ while seeing him as subordinate to the Father. But around 318 to 319, the nature of that subordination became the source of a controversy between Arius, a priest in Alexandria, and Alexander I, the patriarch of Alexandria. Alexander argued that Christ was eternally begotten of the Father's substance, and thus equal to the Father and without a beginning. Arius countered, quote, "If the Father begat the Son, then he who was begotten had a beginning and existence, and from this it follows there was a time when the Son was not," end quote. According to Arius, the Son was not eternally begotten of the Father. Rather, he was made from nothing and thus not equal to the Father. Jesus, Arius taught, was the first created being, through whom everything else was made. This quarrel between Arius and Alexander became a heated controversy across the church, with incredible implications for both theology and worship. And in Rome, the task of mediating religious conflicts fell to the emperor. In order to settle this weighty matter, Emperor Constantine I called the bishops to Nicaea in 325. The council ended up siding with a position that reflected what was the long-standing understanding of the church and of Holy Scripture, Alexander's position, which aligned with passages like John 1:1, the Word was God, and Jesus claims in John 10 that I and the Father are one, and John 14:9 that whoever has seen me has seen the Father. The council chose the word homoousios to describe who Jesus is in relationship with the Father and to emphasize his deity. The Father and Son are of the same substance, the council clarified, but as begotten of the Father, Jesus is not the same as the Father. The council produced a creed, which is now recited in churches around the world, even to this day, that described Christ as begotten, not made, of one being with the Father. The Nicene Creed is among the most consequential documents in all of church history. It remains the articulation of Orthodox Christology, though Arianism did not die out until about the 6th century. And the council's decisions also made significant contribution to theological clarity about the Trinity, which is another perplexity that the church had to define. Later councils would reflect on and refine the statements that came out of Nicaea. The First Council of Constantinople strengthened its statements on the Holy Spirit, and the Council of Chalcedon further worked out the relationship of the human and divine natures of Christ united in a single person. Thank God for Nicaea. Thank God for the courage and the insight that he gave those leaders there to clarify the nature and work of Jesus Christ. What was accomplished by the council continues to be of great importance for the church today. May we, too, be just as committed to knowing and teaching good theology in our churches today as they were then. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you very much. Outside next, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for the afternoon. Cloudy with showers continuing to overspread the region. Cooler than yesterday with high temperatures mainly 60s. Some showers tonight, 50s. tomorrow, rather cloudy. A couple of more showers. Not as cool for many. 60s to low 70s. Variable cloudiness. A couple of showers on Friday with high temperatures in the upper 60s to the middle 70s.
All right, Kevin, thanks for all the hard work at the Weather Center. If you're just joining us, this is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm Bob Price, and thanks for checking in. Here's some of what's happening Wednesday, the 28th of May. It's graduation week at Harvard University, and protests are breaking out all over the place. There in Cambridge, Massachusetts, as the Trump administration ramps up attacks against the Ivy League school. Harvard President Alan Garber.
Why cut off research funding? Sure, it hurts Harvard, but it hurts the country.
President Trump wants all federal agencies to end any remaining contracts they have with Harvard. The White House says Harvard is guilty of fomenting hate speech against Jews. The State Department is pausing student visa applications. It comes as the White House cracks down on woke ideology at America's institutions of higher learning. The Trump administration says any foreigner wishing to attend college in this country will be subjected to increased vetting, including a robust review of social media posts. A third of all the students who attend Harvard hail from outside the United States. Well, things didn't go as planned last night for the SpaceX Starship mega rocket, the largest and most powerful rocket ever built. It broke apart over the Indian Ocean during a test flight. Correspondent Jason Allen.
Right before they lost contact and camera view of the ship while it was still in the air, you could start to see some of the pieces that were peeling away.
Last night's failed test over the Indian Ocean was blamed on a fuel leak. The previous two test flights exploded over the Atlantic Ocean. Well, SpaceX founder Elon Musk is criticizing President Trump's self-described big, beautiful budget bill. It passed the House by a single vote, but faces an uncertain future in the Senate. Musk says the spending bill undermines the efforts of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
Musk tells CBS News the president's spending bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but it cannot be both. The search continues in Arkansas for an escaped killer known as the Devil in the Ozarks. 56-year-old Grant Hardin, the former police chief of Gateway, Arkansas, was convicted of murder and rape in 2017 and sentenced to 80 years behind bars.
If you look at criminals who are sociopaths, I don't think you can have a better example than Grant Hardin.
On Sunday, Hardin escaped from prison by disguising himself as a prison guard. Those who live in the area are very much on edge today.
People just being real cautious, because he was a policeman. He knows what he's doing.
A statewide manhunt continues today for that police chief turned fugitive in the Ozarks. The CDC is no longer recommending the COVID vaccine for pregnant women or healthy children. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. making the announcement in a video that was posted on X.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Previously, the CDC had recommended the vaccine for anyone 6 months and older. The FDA announced last week that new COVID shots would no longer be routinely approved for healthy children or adults. Well, General Motors is putting its money where its motor is. It's making a major investment at an engine plant in Western New York. And here to tell us about it is Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, General Motors says it will sink $888 million into its Tonawanda propulsion plant north of Buffalo to upgrade machinery and other equipment and make other renovations to the sprawling plant, a move which looks to secure 870 jobs at that facility. Along with another plant in Lockport, GM is one of the area's largest manufacturing employers. Albany sweetened the pot on this new upgrade with about $17 million worth of tax credits. The propulsion plant upgrades are expected to begin this summer and be completed by 2027. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
All right, Mark, thank you for that. This is the Noon Report, a Wednesday edition on Family Life.
When we're lonely, we not only feel terrible, but our general health also suffers. We'll be talking about loneliness today here on Family Life's Inside Out. I'm Martha Manikas Foster, and my guest is licensed family therapist Glenn Lutjens, who's been part of the counseling team for Colorado-based Focus on the Family for almost 30 years. Let's talk about loneliness. Physically, we're learning that it's connected with greater risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and even premature death. But not all people who feel lonely are physically isolated. Could you please paint that picture for us of some of the life situations where people find that they feel lonely?
Yeah, in many ways, loneliness is more a state of heart, a state of mind. I use state of heart because it's kind of what's going on inside me. And a lot of that has to do with how I feel about myself, that we do tend to view it as an absence of connection, and that certainly is there. But it can factor in deeper and fuller ways depending upon the type of loneliness that people may be encountering in their lives.
So type of loneliness?
Yeah, there are different types of loneliness, I think. I mean, one would be that isolation loneliness, where in its most severe cases, you're talking about somebody stranded on a desert island. There's also situational loneliness. And situational loneliness really speaks to the fact that there has been connection before. But now, for some reason, there's something that's come into play where that connection with a person or a group of people has changed. Maybe it's where someone has moved away. Maybe there's been a death or a divorce.
Right.
Developmental loneliness, this really develops in a person who has never developed that ability to connect well with other people. Maybe it's because a person has experienced rejection, bullying, abuse in their life. And then you get kind of a cultural loneliness, which is fostered by the attitudes of our culture, some of the technology of our culture, where we have cell phones that can connect us theoretically to people, but they leave it about, a quarter of an inch deep and a mile wide. Right. So there's not much sense of really connecting. And the last one would be existential loneliness. Desiring to be connected to the ultimate purpose giver, the ultimate reality, God himself.
If we're feeling lonely, and we talk to some of our Christian friends, frequently they want to reassure us by saying, even though you're in the middle of something hard, depression, loneliness, infertility, God is going to use this pain to help you grow to be more like him. And I think that most of us don't really want to hear it at that moment. But I bet you can assure us that God can use that loneliness, right?
Yeah, it's true that he does. At that moment, we're wanting connection. And we don't have to feel guilty that we want connection. I mean, when you think about it, God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He's triune. And so God, in his very essence, is connection.
Right.
So the fact that I want connection is a part of what it just simply means to be a human being. But it is really important to say to ourselves, okay, that first connection, that first relationship with God where I can always come to him, I can always share my heart, I can be honest, I can read his word, I can have that connection, but I also need other people to fill that gap as well.
Right. So, Glenn, what kind of hope can you offer lonely people listening? What practical steps might you suggest that might help people begin to feel less lonely? You're talking about connection. You're talking about relationship. Is that part of the answer?
I think it is. I think a part of it, maybe even a prior component, is to realize that I can become more comfortable with who I am. If God can love me as I am, I can love myself as I am, too. And then also realizing that I can reach out to other people. I can take initiative. Now, the problem with taking initiative is what? I can be rejected.
Rejection. That would be terrible. Yeah. It would really hurt.
Yeah. So looking at it from the vantage point of, okay, I can take some steps toward another person. I can grow in my level of trust of that person, and that person is doing the same. They can develop in their level of trust with us. But just seeing the opportunity that I have something valuable for another person to be aware of, to know who I am. I think it's also really important to recognize that it's easy to get so self-focused as far as, okay, what is my need for connection, that I lose awareness of other people's need for connection too. Can I reach out to someone who maybe doesn't feel like they're connecting with people? And can I be Jesus to him or her?
That is Glenn Lutchens at Focus on the Family Life Noon Report. Now, you can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature, Inside Out, and all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or our website, familylife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A disturbance northeastbound from the Ohio Valley set to bring us to about 24 to 36 hours of cool, cloudy, showery weather again. And another system will come in to do the same this weekend before a flip to some warmer, drier conditions occurs next week. In the meantime, for the afternoon, cloudy with showers continuing to overspread the region. Cooler than yesterday with high temperatures, mainly 60s. Some showers tonight, 50s. Tomorrow, rather cloudy, couple of more showers, not as cool for many. 60s to low 70s. Variable cloudiness, couple of showers on Friday with high temperatures in the upper 60s to the middle 70s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Looking forward to some of that summer-like weather arriving for June, which arrives next week. Hard to believe, flipping the page on May already. Finally, today, panic on a Delta flight about to take off from the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. Here's what it sounded like. Yeah, some pretty frightened passengers there, but air traffic controllers seemed amused by it all.
You ready for this? There's a pigeon on the airplane. There's a pigeon on the airplane, and it won't go away. That's a first for me.
First for him, yeah. Actually, there were two pigeons on that airplane. A baggage handler removed the feathered stowaways, and that flight went on as scheduled. As they say, birds of a feather fly together. And that's our world. The world we live in. Wednesday, the 28th of May. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.